Welcome to the RAG Podcast, the weekly show where I interview recruitment owners who are prepared to tell their unique story of growth. This is all in aid of helping future and existing recruitment businesses who are looking to do similar things. Now, growth means different things to different people. So by tuning in every week, you're no doubt going to find information that's relevant to you. On this week's episode of the RAG Podcast, I'm joined by Joe Jani. Joe is the founder and CEO of Metric Search, with a bio and a geo brand. These guys have 90 heads in offices across the US and the UK, and they only started in 2019. Joe recently sold a minority share to a private equity firm, de-risking the business for himself and taking more than 7 figures off the table, but also to have growth capital and take the business to 100 million valuation in 3 years. So in this episode, we talk about a guy who's only 31 years old. He's been in recruitment for 10 years, and he's growing one of the fastest growing recruitment companies in the world. We get into the detail of how he's done it. So if you are inspired by growth, big exits, and everything in between, you're going to love this episode. So let's get into it. Without further ado, Joe, welcome to the RAG Podcast.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. It's been we've kind of spoke about this for a few years, and you reached out to let me know some news, and we were like, right, now's the right time.
Yeah, it's been difficult. It's hard to know when the right time is because we've been growing, and you always want to come at when you're on the pinnacle. So yeah, it feels like a good time. So thanks for having me.
Pleasure, mate. And thanks for coming to Sheffield. Not too far for you to drive from Nottingham.
Yeah, only an hour. Not great weather today, but yeah, nice to be local and not in London for once.
Yeah, I've learned, mate, you're not in control of the weather, right? You're not in control. You've got to live your life without worrying about the weather.
No, not well here in the UK. Yeah.
For sure. Look, Joe, most people might be familiar with you. Some people aren't familiar with you. So even though I've done an introduction, I never do it justice. Do us a favor. Give us the bird's eye, helicopter view of the business, people, headcount, all that kind of stuff now. 30 seconds to a minute. And then we'll go back and tell the story.
Great. So launched Metric 2019, September in New York. Since then, we've grown across 2 brands. So Bio, which is life science, medtech, geo, infrastructure, engineering, energy. Mm-hmm. We're 90 recruiters today across 5 offices.
That's 90.
90. London, Nottingham, New York, Austin, Fort Lauderdale. Right. So great journey. Year 6 just started 4 weeks ago.
Amazing. Year 6. Wow. That's I'm year 8 in March. Is it year 8? Or am I 8 years old? That means I'm going to year 9. Fucking hell.
Has it gone fast?
Yeah. Crazy. 2017. So to achieve what you've achieved in the time you've done it is probably one of the most ridiculous success stories I've heard of. So let's get into before you started the business briefly. What was your career trajectory like as a recruiter?
Yeah, so joined recruitment 21 in Leeds.
That's age 21, not 2021.
Yeah, age 21. Yeah, thank you.
That'd be fast.
Age 21 in Leeds with a business called Charlton Morris.
Was that where you went uni in Leeds or something?
Yes, stayed in Leeds. Met my wife. She's from Harrogate. Right. Got the best job I could find in Leeds that hopefully paid the most in commission. And Charlton Morris was a great business at the time and had a great commission scheme. So entered at 21, working the life sciences market. Did really well there up until I was 25. Was rookie of the year, top biller, won a lot of awards. At 25, got the opportunity to move to New York and open Charlton Morris's North American business. Wow. So did that with a team of 3.
What was that like though? Just at that age, going out to the US to open a business?
Amazing. Some of the best times of my life in recruitment.
Did your wife go with you?
Yeah, we were married. So we both went out together. Wow. I remember being very shocked in the first 2 or 3 weeks at how expensive everything was, and thought I'd better build some money out here.
I've just been to Miami in the summer, and I went to Peru as well, and Peru was so much cheaper than Miami. I mean, Miami's mental. You go for breakfast, like bagels, and you spend like $100. You're like, wow, this is too much. So you had that shock when you got there?
Yeah, me and our CCO went to Miami a few weeks ago. I'll tell you a few stories about that off the podcast. But yeah, when we got to New York, it was expensive, but great. And the 3 of us who went out, we really felt that we had an opportunity to build something special.
Right, so they were already experienced people with you?
They were 18 months and 2 years. So knew what they were doing, but weren't 5, 6, 7 years in. We were all under 25.
What was the reason for going out to America? Like, what was the benefit of being there for the business?
Yeah, for the business, we were doing a bit in the US, but I think 80% of that business was in Europe, and the US is just such a huge market. It was a huge opportunity. I was probably limited in my career at Charlton Morris as where I could go in Leeds because the directors were already set. So I proposed to Andy, who was managing director at the time, can I move to New York, set up an office? And he said, have one more good year and you can go. So,
wow.
So we did.
How long did it take them to set it all up for you to be there?
Probably about an 18-month process, all in all. We worked an incubator team from Leeds for a bit, got out there and hit the ground running.
Wow. So how long were you at Charlton Morris for in total?
5 years.
5 years. And then what happened while you were in America that meant that you started Metric?
Yeah, so we did 1 year as Charlton Morris North America and had an unbelievable year. I think we did 1.7, 1.8 million between 3 or 4 of us. Andy then came to me and said, hi, do you want to set up your own business? This is clearly outgrowing what we're doing here at Charlton Morris. There's huge opportunity in the US market. Do you want to be majority shareholder? We'll give you equity. We'll give you a pay rise. We'll give you a bonus.
Why do you think
your own business?
Why do you think he said all that?
I'd like to think that he saw potential in what we were doing. And
why would he not want to own that potential and just keep it within the brand?
I think at the time there was quite a lot of internal conflict between New York and Leeds about who owned which accounts because they were trying to work North America from Leeds and we were trying to work North America from New York. So Andy was probably doing a lot of refereeing between New York and
So it made
Leeds.
sense almost to separate it, let you become competitors, but also remain a shareholder in the business.
Yeah, gave him an opportunity to stay involved and have shares, and gave me an opportunity for something bigger, which I was always striving for, even at 25, 26.
So how did you feel when he proposed that?
I thought, maybe what's the catch?
Sounds too good.
Yeah, I thought maybe what's the catch, but I thought about it for a while, and it was either that or go fully solo and bootstrap it and set it up from my New York apartment and go completely solo. But the convenience of taking the team we'd built up, which I think was maybe up to 7 by that time, and keeping all my clients, keeping my accounts.
Yeah, because there's no benefit in a non-compete because he's a shareholder. So why would he put that on you? Because he's only affecting his own revenue.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a real pro that we ended Charlton Morris on the Friday and launched Metric on the Monday, and we're scoring fees with accounts.
What did clients and candidates say? Did anyone go like, why Metric? What's happened? Did they want to know, or did they care?
I don't think they cared. I think they just want a great service, and generally they knew me and the consultant we were working with pretty well by then. So it was a really smooth transition, to be honest.
Right, cool. So talk me through, before we get into that, just you're now an entrepreneur, even though you incubated entrepreneur with partners and what have you. Is that something you always wanted? Like, what's the story around your ambition to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I don't really know why, but I've always wanted to run my own business, have my own thing, to a point of I applied for the junior apprentice.
Did you? I could see you on the apprentice. Yeah, your hair would stand out on the apprentice.
Well, I didn't get on, but
yeah, I could see you on it though. Like, you've got that apprentice look.
Yeah, I think that's a compliment. But yeah, always wanted to do it, and even at 25, had real ideas for improving Charlton Morris.
Did growing up you had a story that, well, was there something in your life that made you want to be an entrepreneur or make it big?
I don't think so. I guess we touched on before we started recording, my dad moving over to Nottingham from Uganda when he was 3, and my mum also growing up in Clifton in Nottingham. Again,
is that a tough area, Clifton?
It was the second biggest council estate in Europe,
behind Wythenshawe in Manchester.
Yeah, probably.
Which is where I go.
Yeah, so again, I had a great upbringing, but I was always money driven and wanted more, and I started in recruitment, and it seemed like a real pathway to success. And once you start making good commission, and you feel like you can push this further and further, so I guess it kind of grew as I worked in recruitment for longer.
Do you know what? I think I was probably like you. There was classic signs that I wanted to leave home when I went to uni. Like, I wanted to get away from the life I had. My mates used to always say, "Oh, why do you want to go so much?" I'm like, I'm fucking bored of this.
Yeah.
And I also did organising a couple of events and made a bit of money, but I wasn't that classic, like, you know, fucking selling sweets in the playground. I wasn't that kid. It wasn't actually till I got into recruitment that I realised I was good at something that could make me a lot of money, that I was like, fuck, I want to kick on it.
Yeah.
Some people have that natural, always looking at, I don't think I was so much.
And did you move to London to start?
No, I was a teacher that went travelling, who landed in Melbourne. My qualification wasn't valid, so I just met a lot of recruiters that were English and Irish and that, and I was like, I'll do that, and it sounded good. And I liked Entourage, if you've ever seen it, with Ari Gold.
Yeah, one of my favourites.
Ari Gold is like an agent of talent, and I thought I could be an Ari Gold kind of. That was kind of the kind of idea at the time. But I was 25, like 24, turning 25 when I got into recruitment, and I didn't really know what day it was, if I'm honest. But as soon as I started earning money a couple of years later, it took me a while because I did Australia, then I moved back to London. I'd not really earned anything till, I got into it in March 2011. I don't think I'd made any real money till similar time in 2013.
Yeah.
Maybe June 2013 was when I got a big check. So I had to have a lot of resilience and consistency on there. But after that, it's like, I realised I could make more money doing this than I ever thought possible.
I always say it's a huge momentum game, and once you start, it's almost, you're not doing yourself justice unless you keep going and keep going.
Yeah. So you've took this business on. Did it feel like your business, even though they were still involved and things, like you got a shareholder partner? Or
Yeah, it did, because shortly after we launched it was the pandemic, right? So we launched September 2019, and shortly after that was COVID, and the Charlton Morris guys in Leeds were very, very busy with their own problems, and I was very busy with my own problems in New York, and I had to figure out a strategy to stay in business year one. So very quickly we set the business up, and it's, Joe, you're on your own here. You better figure this out. So
what did you do?
Build a lot of money and just got my head down and did as much as we could. I got everyone back in the office as quick as...
In New York?
As quick as possible. New York was...
They locked down pretty hard though, didn't they?
It locked down very hard, 11 o'clock curfews.
Yeah.
I was running 10K and recruiting every day pretty much,
wow.
which we did for 4 or 5 months. And then as soon as we could get everyone back in the WeWork, we did. And we ended up doing okay that year. I think we built about $1.8 million, which was enough to see us through and make a bit of profit and build ahead of...
Was the market still okay, or was it a much tougher market at that point?
It was tough, but fortunately we were life science heavy at that time. So once the vaccines started getting developed, we got quite a lot of work working on them. So it was slow for 4 or 5 months, but then started to pick up towards the back end. Yeah. So
what happened next? So you know, COVID did... I think 2021 and 22 were 2 of the best years in history in our sector. So how did that go for you?
Yes, again, great. So we went from 1.8 million to 4 million to 10 million NFI through that period. Opened London office, then opened the Nottingham office. So continued to scale throughout that, and were doing really well. I think we were probably up to about 50 headcount by then, but very lean to be doing 10 million NFI. So I think everyone boomed those years. So I tried to not get.
Were you aware of it at that time, that it was a abnormal marketplace?
Yeah, I was saying to the life science team, this isn't going to last. They were ringing up candidates saying, which state do you want to live in the US? Because we can place you wherever you want. It was. I hadn't seen anything like that before. So. Yeah. So whilst I was happy we grew from 4 mil to 10 mil that year, it was almost a bit of a false economy, I felt, and I didn't want to get too carried away with that. But it did give us a good building block to where we've got to.
So when you're in that time and you're going, 1.8 million, a small team, you're growing so rapidly, what did you want? Like, what was your vision for it? Because you've done some incredible numbers there. Like, how intentional was your behavior as an individual and as a business?
Yeah, good question. And that has changed for me quite a lot as the years have gone by. To start off with, my sole goal was to be bigger and better than Charlton Morris.
Right.
Just from a pure competitive perspective. So we were building to be bigger and better than them. And
how many people did they have in that same sort of competing division?
They must have been about 60, 70 at that time, and probably doing about 10 million as well. But I felt when I was in that business, they were doing a lot of things wrong that I wanted to change when I launched Metric. So I always like to say we took the good parts and left the bad and improved them. So at the start, it was really, right, let's build something.
So you knew from day one you wanted a team. It was never going to be like a lean, profitable lifestyle business. It was always going to be a headcount grow.
No, because when I decided to go with that option of launching Metric with those guys, I almost said no to that because I could have just sat on my own and built $1 million a year and
took home a fortune.
But I was 26 at that point and felt like I had a lot to give in terms of building and scaling and management. So I really wanted this to be my go at building something as big as physically possible and as successful as possible. I've always felt that my time will come for recruiting and on my own and having a pure lifestyle business, which may happen or may not now.
Yeah. So you knew you were going to grow, but really, and I like your honesty, it was more just about beating your competition, your old colleagues, right? So that's what drove you in the early days.
Yeah. I like to try and change this every couple of years, and it was that to start with, and then once we did get bigger than them, it was like, right, okay, I want to do an event, I want to do a private equity deal, I want to be one of those 0.1% of recruitment companies who gets private equity investment and start on that journey. So,
where did that idea come from? Is that someone telling you or listening to things like my show or whatever? Like, where did you get the inspiration to think, well, that's the next step?
Yeah, there'd been a few seeds planted on listening to various people on your show, and I was thinking, where about that size? Where about that EBITDA? Maybe we're ready for this. And then actually a friend from Manchester who I used to play cricket with, works in corporate finance, came from Cowgills, who I'll give a shout out to, who were great. They came down to see me in Nottingham and asked what we were doing with the business, and told them the plans, told them the growth, told them where we'd come from. And his name's James. James said to me, Joe, what you need to do a private equity deal. You need to de-risk. You need to get some growth capital. There's businesses who'd love to invest in this, which I was probably a little bit naive to at that time because you only know what you know, right?
So what did you, if we go back a little bit, before this conversation with James in Nottingham, had you moved back to the UK?
Yeah, so I moved back. I did 3.5 years in New York and then moved back to the UK. So we loved New York. COVID was tough. We couldn't travel in and out the country. And honestly, you start looking at Rightmove when you're locked in your New York apartment and looking at what you can afford in Nottingham versus what you can afford in Williamsburg. And me and my wife were always planning to have children. So we almost said, look, now's a good time to move back and try for a family.
Did she not try and say Leeds or Harrogate? Or?
I actually can't remember, to be honest, but probably not. We'd already done 6 years in Leeds, so it was
and it's not
my
far.
turn.
It's only the M1, isn't it? You can get up from Nottingham pretty quick.
Yeah, I am trying to convince her to move to Miami at the minute.
Really?
It's not going too well.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that. So you get her to come. So you move back. What was that like, leaving a business you built in New York to come back to the UK? Like that, did you feel removed from it? Like, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, it was hard, but I felt like we had a really good core team there who'd been around me for 3 years at that time and really knew what we wanted and what the business was about. So it was tough to leave it, but I did feel like we were leaving it in good hands. And the 12 months after I moved back, they had another great year. So that was fine. But I was also hiring 2 people I'd previously worked with to open our Nottingham office, who were John, Joe and Mike, who were incredible performers at Charlton Morris, who were also from Nottingham. So I was moving back to launch a Nottingham business with 2 people I know.
So you'd already planned that with them?
Yeah, that was pre-planned.
Right. So what does it look like for you? Like, you said leaving a business in good shape, but what does that actually mean? Like, what has to be evident in a person or multiple people for you to be comfortable that they can run a successful Metric business unit or team or desk?
Yeah, good question. A number of things. One of the key ones with Metric that makes us fairly unique is that I want all our leaders to lead from the front, not just in terms of their attitude and their behaviors, but I want them to lead from the front in terms of their billings, which is quite unique. We have people managing 15, 20 person offices where I still expect them to bill 400, 500K.
Right.
But outside of that, they need to be trustworthy. They need to be bought into the company values. They need to be reliable, and more so, they need to be ready to have difficult conversations with people. As we scale to 90, there's a lot of times you have to say no to people, and I think in recruitment there's a lot of leaders who find it tough to have difficult conversations with people. So they're generally the key points that we would look for.
And how long would you let them lead something before you'd step away?
Yeah, good question. So a couple of the offices we've had have been slightly different, right? So the office launches we've had in London and Austin and Florida, I've never worked in those locations. So they're people who've worked either under me or other leaders in the business and then moved on to those locations. So it's less about a period of time. It's more when they're ready. And I guess if they're billing enough and getting enough work to carry an office, and they're showing they can get new starters up and running quickly, which is something we pride ourselves on at Metric, then I would say they're ready to go. Generally, we work with the grad model. So someone who's got a track record of billing themselves and managing a team of grads and getting them up to speed, i.e. billing 300, 400K a year, then I would say they're ready to open their own office.
Right, like it. So you're back in the UK. How long? What happened to the Charlton Morris relationship? Are they still, when you move back to Nottingham, are they still part of the business?
Yeah, so pretty much whilst I was moving back, and almost day one as I got back, we agreed to do the MBO. So I bought the remaining shares.
Was that always something that was talked about from day one, or did you have to bring that up with them?
No, it was pre-agreed, and they actually brought that up at that time when I moved back to the UK. It was like, right, should we do the MBO? Got the price for that, went through the lawyers, and got that wrapped up relatively swiftly. And
was that money you already had on the balance sheet you could use to do it? You didn't have to go out and get loans or?
Yeah, it was all paid for by the business, so profits from the business, which again was great. There was pressure through that period to make sure we continued to build, but generally we were in a good financial position. And I think we started doing that 2022 whilst the market was good, and it did start to slow as we were going through the MBO process, but that wasn't an option for us to slow because we had the MBO payments. So that relentlessness kept us on a good track to continue to build.
Was it just you,
tough.
Or is there a group of owners that bought the business?
So it was mainly me, but I had 3 of the directors that were part of that MBO as well, who were, I guess, gifted equity.
Yeah, minority
equity to keep them incentivized through that, and so on and so forth.
Right. And what was the relationship like with Charlton Morris? Because quite quickly you then, 2 guys from them are going to set up your business in Nottingham with you. Was that difficult?
Yeah, and trying to look back to that time, it was semi-difficult, and we had to handle those conversations quite carefully. But just before we did the MBO, Andy was happy to let them come over and join us because I guess he was going to benefit from it as well. Which
it's a really unique situation.
Yeah,
really unique. Like you say, normally old employers, people, movement, client base, it's also protected. But it's because you are mutually owning things. There's like a freedom of movement that I think has massively benefited both parties.
Definitely, and I think at Andy's level it was great, but I think some of the directors below who were managing John, Joe and Mike who came over, they maybe weren't so happy because they weren't benefiting from that. But that was the situation, and we could benefit from it, so we went ahead and did it.
So what did the business look like at that point when you completed the MBO, and when was this?
Yeah, again, it must have been about 50 odd people across London, New York, Nottingham. Nottingham was really small at that time. It was probably 6-7 people, and then that office has grown incredibly quickly. But so yeah, it was a single brand at that time. It was just Metric. It wasn't Metric Bio and Metric Geo. So, and we were probably about $10 million revenue at that point,
right,
or NFI when we did.
And how did that feel once they were gone and that you were fully owning that business? What was that like?
Again, it was one of those moments where I probably expected to feel different to how I actually did at the time. It's one of those where you think, right, I'll be delighted on that day, and you worked up to that day, and then the day comes, and then I'm just looking forward again to what's next. So again,
you don't really take it in, and it's a bit underwhelming, perhaps.
I would say that, yeah. I mean, I was in Dubai, and me and my missus, we had a good time, and we celebrated it for a day. But then it's very quickly back onto, right, what's next? Where do we go from here? Because I've just bought this business through MBO, so day one is now really, because you don't do yourself justice if you just start going backwards or you stop there. So it was imperative that I took it to the next level.
Do you think you exceeded their expectations in the time that they were part of it? Like, do you think they thought you'd get to the size, like 50 staff in that short period?
I think we've grown a lot quicker than they thought. And I think at the point they did the MBO was, as we said, the market was absolutely unprecedented. And they probably thought this is the best this is going to get price-wise. So I think there was an element of that, yeah.
It must be a weird feeling because you almost like got to their level so quick, and it's like you're only this kid who's 25 who had ran a small team in New York. Like, you didn't have this experience of managing huge businesses, yet you were able to get to that 50 staff in a couple of years.
Yeah,
not many people do that.
No, I just really, and I used to talk to John Joe about this, so who's our CCO now, on lunch when we were both at Chant Morris, and it was a weird drive that I had where I was like, I honestly think I could do this, and I think I could build this to be 100, and I think I could be the CEO. And he always says that not many people think or talk like that at that age, but I just really felt a huge belief that I could do it. So,
what's the ingredient, do you think, to growing? A lot of businesses never get to 50 staff or beyond it. So what do you think needs to happen to get from 10 to 20, 30, up to 50? Like, what's that? If we look at that, just that part of the business, what would you look back on and say, we had to do that to get there?
I think there's a lot. I think if I try and narrow it down to a few points, I think you've got to have a good leadership team who are really bought in and behind the mission, and the CEO/founder who still has a real desire to be there every day.
Mm-hmm.
I think particularly with incentivizing some of our guys with equity, that brought them up to my level of thinking like a founder and thinking like an owner, which helped scale that. So I think that's another thing. A huge turning point for Metric was when the market got tough, we really doubled down on all of the things that I believe you need in recruitment to be successful, which was being in the office. It was real BD training every day. I was doing BD training. John Joe was doing BD training. All of the leadership team were doing BD training in the office. I think they're probably the key points, and then obviously hard work and resilience as you touch on, but you also have to have the courage to scale it and continue to...
It's the courage to spend your money on it, because you could just be banking the profit, but you're reinvesting all the time.
Yeah, and again, I always think the time to do that is when the markets are down and other people probably don't want to take a risk. So we launched London in the London office in the middle of COVID with 3 people who got recommended to us when no one was hiring at that time, and that has turned out to be a great office. And we hired John, Joe, and Mike, who set up Nottingham in COVID when no one was hiring, and recently over the last 12 months we've hired a load of experienced recruiters who we probably wouldn't have been able to get in 2022 when they were flying and making loads of commission. So I've always been a big fan of investing when the markets are perceived to be down, and that's really helped.
Where do you get your information on this stuff, like to choose which market or which office to open? Like, where are you getting the insights to know where to put your money and time?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we got asked this a lot through the private equity process. So a lot of it is speaking to clients, speaking to candidates, speaking to my team, and understanding which markets are hot. Is there adjacent markets we should be working in? Is there an area where we could be doing more work? I always think you should value speaking to your team and believing in your clients and candidates rather than paying £80,000 for a market report that tells you everyone's moving to Florida or everyone's moving to Austin, which is public information. I think that the real golden nuggets are in talking to
the private conversations.
Clients, candidates.
Do you have to get your team thinking that way though, or do you just is it just they're doing their job and then you're just prizing that out of them?
So again, great question. We had to incentivize them to think that way. So all of the managers now, their bonus is ultimately 1% of what their team bills with kickers. But when we launched that bonus, it was like, look, I want you adding to your team and I want you developing new markets. Every person you bring in, you're going to get 1% of whatever they bill. So you need to be on the lookout for a new market. And since we've done that, they are constantly coming to me with this market is good.
They know it's in their interest to grow.
Yeah. So I think at the start I expected them to think like that, but they didn't. And then we incentivized them to. And now we've probably got the next 20, 30 markets across both brands ready to go.
Wow. That's a lot. When it comes to your own job, I suppose, like how long were you billing, and what was that relation? How did you get off the tools to focus on the business and not in the business?
Yeah, and that's probably been my biggest change over the last 2 years. So I'd build every year from being 21 to 28, anywhere between 500 and 900k a year. When we started the private equity process, it was just physically impossible for me to carry on billing. But before we did that, I knew I needed to hire a team around me who could take my accounts and make sure we're not.
Did you have a
losing
niche
them.
that was your niche that you didn't give anyone else?
No, my niche was CDMO, which is part of life science, which I still dabble in, but that is now our biggest and probably most successful team. And we've got $1 million biller who works that market, who took some of my relationships and has just taken them to
New heights,
to a different level that I never thought was possible, which has been really rewarding to see. And his manager bills 750, 800.
So how are you? So up until the private equity, the MBO, the movement, you were still billing.
Yeah.
How did you split your time? Like, what was the day like for you?
Chaos. Billing, trying to show people, saying, look, watch and learn, listen to this call. I had to bill because we needed to pay the MBO off. Yeah. So the quickest way to get that paid was by me billing 900k and bringing everyone with me and driving high standards. Yeah. So that was very much, look, I'm leading from the front here. There wasn't too much time for...
To build 900k, how many deals do you have to do in your market? The huge fees?
I think my average deal size was about 40k.
Yeah, so the big deals.
Yeah, a lot of retainers.
It's about 20, 25. It's only a couple of deals a month, really.
Yeah,
It's not,
It wasn't like I was doing loads of BD. It was repeat. You're
not even having to do huge volume. You're doing just big quality deals, right?
Yeah, that director plus minus one.
Because what a lot of people in our industry don't think about is the same effort applied in a different direction could get you way higher.
Yeah.
Like the same amount of work often goes into a $5,000 placement as a $45,000 placement. Like it's the same job.
Sometimes easier to do the bigger deals.
Yeah, I agree. But people don't realize that, and they get trapped in, low value work. And naturally, you can just elevate, do the same amount of work, same amount of hours, and get double the output.
Yeah, and the US market is huge for us with that. So 92% of our revenue comes from the US. So generally, with that, the fees are bigger, which helps with that average deal size, which I think across the business is about 32k.
Right.
So
it's massive.
So they're good deal sizes.
Yeah, it's huge. I'm interrupting today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Atlas, the only AI-first recruitment platform on the market. Now, imagine you had a genuine assistant following you around, listening to everything you said on the phone or in meetings, and then doing all the admin for you that you don't want to do. Well, that is actually possible now through Atlas CRM. It's the only platform with fully integrated AI, so there's no note-taking whatsoever and no need to buy any additional software. Now, they've got so many amazing features, specifically perfect data recall. They can enhance your ability to evaluate candidates by retaining and recalling detailed interview information from anything you've done. So any phone calls, any meetings, any emails, any interviews, any interaction with people, the information's there, so you can make really clear, advised decisions moving forward. Okay, so Atlas is brand new to the market and launching so rapidly. For the first 200 members, they are offering what's called a founder's license, okay? And the founder's license is going to be a 40% discount for life, okay? And it's only for the first 200. Now, if you want to be in the first 200, you're listening to this episode through the RAG, you're going to have a great chance. Go to www.recruitwithatlas.com/the RAG and sign up on that page. All right, let's get back to the show. Let's go back to that conversation now with the guy in Manchester, James from Manchester, who comes to see you. So you're still billing, you're in Nottingham, you've got the London office at this point as well?
Yeah, we've got London, New York, Nottingham.
And you've done the MBO.
Yeah.
So what, he comes and talks to you and he says, look, you should be thinking about something else here now.
Yeah, and the world of private equity, right? Which I'd always been told.
Can't say I know an awful lot about it, but I'm not an expert on it, and it's something I've probably not wanted to get too involved in my life. But I don't think there's any real reason why.
No, but I guess growing up where you grew up and where I grew up in Nottingham, it's not like you're in London. You don't hear too much about it. It's pretty unknown, and James was from Nottingham and had moved. So talked to him. And he just said, Joe, you've got a real opportunity here. The markets are down. Your numbers are incredible.
What was your EBITDA at that point?
About 3.5 pounds. So good. But that was in a period when the recruitment industry was going back probably 10, 11%. So a good news story and a company outperforming the market, people were very interested in. And again, this goes back to me seeing that as an opportunity to do a minority deal at this point and then to double down whilst the market's still.
Did James give you that advice and say, look, these are the options? Like, so based on all your numbers that you've told me, these are the different ways you could skin this.
Yeah, he mapped it out of different options. Could have done a majority deal, trade deal, minority PE deal. So given my age and the age of the business, we felt doing a minority PE deal was the best thing to do so we could continue to grow it, because we feel like we've grown so far, but we're not even halfway as to where we could be. So James and the Cargos team were incredibly helpful through that process for someone like me who doesn't know it. And my only M&A experience was doing an MBO of the business I was already running.
That's still, you still had some experience, but it's different. What's your life like? Have you got your little first kid at this point as well?
Yeah, so we've got Molly, who's 15, and my wife's due
15 months.
15 months.
Not 15
yeah, she's not 15. She's not 15. No, she's 15 months.
So, but let's just pause on that. So you've grown this ridiculous business. You know, you've moved around the world. You've done an MBO. How's your wife coping? Like, how do you maintain being a good husband? Like, how did that go?
Yeah, so look, my wife's incredibly supportive and was a director HR in a company in New York who did qualitative due diligence. So she kind of gets it a bit, but again, she's been really supportive.
She understands what it takes to be in such a fast-growing business.
Yeah, I mean, she works in a fund at Bryant Park in New York, and what I work is not much compared to some of those guys. Yeah. So she knows what it takes to be successful. But again, I am in the office every day. I travel a lot.
What time do you get in and leave?
It probably gets a bit later, but I probably do like 8 or 9 till 6, 7 when I'm in Nottingham. But it's probably the more being in London once or twice a week, or being in New York for a week at a time, or Florida for a week at a time, or being at a conference. But generally, we've had a pretty good run at it.
Have you always communicated why you're doing this, and like what's in it for you two as a husband and wife partnership?
Yeah, and I think Camilla definitely understands that, but also for me, I don't think she would want me sitting around being at home every day, because I'll be bored, and Metric does give me a real purpose in life, and I wake up on a Monday and I'm excited to get in the office, and I'm excited to go to work, and without that purpose, it's hard for me to imagine what I would be doing, and I think my wife fully gets that.
What are you like when you're at home?
Probably best to ask my wife, but
what do you think? What would she say? I'll ring her up if you want.
Yeah, ring her. Yeah, ring her. Her favourite TV character is Ari Gold, so you'll probably get on. Yeah. What am I like at home? Depends. I'm very all or nothing with things, so I'm either working, playing paddle, out watching Forest. I try and relax a bit, but there's not too much.
Are you present with your little ones? Are you on your phone? Like, how are you coping when you're in the house?
I try to be as present as I can, but it is hard, and I do find it difficult because my mind is 24/7 on Metric and on work, and with the US business, like I'll be getting a Slack message or a call or a text, and I'm the type of person who I can't not look at it, whatever it is.
Because like 10 at night for you is like 5 or whatever, Florida.
5.
How do you switch off? Like, you can't, because if someone needs you, are you going to answer the phone?
Yeah, definitely. And I do find it hard to switch off. And I think my wife would definitely tell you that I find it difficult to fully switch off. But for me, going to do things helps. Like if we go to the park, or like we go out with her daughter, or we go to do something.
Do you give her the weekends? Like, are they sacred time? I mean, if you've got a forest, you know. That's eating into it.
Yeah, trying to now. And I've scaled that since Molly's been born. It's way less doing things on the weekend and try and do as much as we can. But now we've got another one due next Sunday, so we're going to have 2 under 16 mums. like it will be that weekend will just be family time moving forward.
Wife's called Camilla, right?
Camilla,
It's
yeah.
Camilla. She's superwoman, really. And I'd say the same about my wife, Lauren. Like, she's incredible the way she puts up with some of the things I'm up to. But I will be really honest. I am pretty good at. I turn my phone off now at night.
Yeah.
So I'm nowhere near the level. Well, I'm not. Business isn't at the level yours is at. So it's reflective in the work that I do. So you talk me through once you commit to this PE process. Let's go through it. What happened?
Yes, so I think it started probably November time. Meetings with probably 9, 10, 11, 12 different options, some private equity companies, some trade companies, Teams calls, then face-to-face meetings where ultimately you'll go and do a management presentation and talk about where the business has come from, what the plan is for growth. They talk a lot about the culture. They want to know a lot about me and the management team and to check that we're going to stay on and we're fully bought in. So you do a bit of a roadshow, right? And again...
And this is where you were like, I can't keep billing now. I've got to commit to this.
Yeah, because one week you're in Amsterdam, then you're in New York, then you're in London, and you're just going around all over the place. Ironically, the investors we went for in the end are in Nottingham, which probably tells you something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the point where we can't bill in. So me and our FD at the time were just on the road meeting private equity companies mostly to talk about metric in the business, and from there, if they're interested, you get.
What
offers.
did you find they were most interested in? Like, what are the credentials that they really wanted to know?
Yeah, a lot of it was culture, which surprised me. I thought it would be probably more about the future plans for the business, but it was more the culture of the business and how we're running it and why it's been successful rather than what we're going to do.
Right.
Which was...
And how would you answer that? Like, tell us, how would you describe the culture? And
yeah, again, it's high performance. We try and liken it to a high performance sports team. We make it crystal clear what metric is coming in and that we want you to be in the office. And
is it 5 days in the office?
Yeah, everyone's in the office. And
have you lost anyone because of that since the pandemic?
I think we lost one, but like no one, not a top performer. But the upside of this is I think as I said to you earlier, we've had 30 people make over $100,000 in their first 12 months with us. So
that's take home, not billions.
Take home, yeah. So they've took home.
And there's a lot of people say that ain't possible and it's bullshit, but you're proving it is possible.
Yeah, and I find it hard not to reply to those when I see them on LinkedIn. But that's for me something to be really proud of with Metric, that we've had 30 people come here, mostly with no recruitment experience, come and bill 100,000 in their first 12 months. So we took a lot of that case study to these private equity meetings, and then they want to know, right, what's the secret sauce? So how have you done that? And it's having a culture of world-class L&D, encouragement, collaboration. Everyone in the office is helping everyone else get better. And yes, it is competitive, but I would say that we have the line of not going into toxic competition pretty much nailed down, where you see a lot of recruitment companies in the top billers a bit toxic, or there's always someone who doesn't want someone else to do well. We really don't have any of that. So it's having the offices as world-class L&D centres to come and learn and making people...
What does your L&D function look like?
Yeah, it's good. So we hired Jess, who is an ex-top biller in tech, to come and run our L&D function. But myself and John Joe sat down with Jess and just completely revamped the whole plan. So there's an online learning platform which is accessible whenever. So the short 15-minute videos from someone about how to sell a retainer, or how to do a client call, or how to manage a process. So
everything you can think of is in there.
Everything you can think of is in there, bite size. But then Jess does 2 to 3 week classroom L&D training, which again is great. And I think our time to first fee from a graduate is 58 days at the minute,
right? Which
is pretty quick. So
how often are you hiring graduates?
So we hire a lot in the summer, then we tend to slow throughout. So I think we've got a group starting in October, then we're not going to hire any more probably till next summer. But generally through the summer we'll probably add about 20.
So that's what you do then. It's waves of grads. It's not like you're 1s and 2s all the time. You do it in stages and then you manage it like a proper cohort.
Yeah, like a cohort. And I think the sweet spot is cohort 4. Sometimes it has to be a bit larger, but generally 4 is good.
So if you're hiring 20, then it's 5 cohorts of 4.
Yeah.
at the same time? Or?
Ideally, no. So because Jess travels around the world training these up.
Right.
So
each office almost starts.
Yeah, each office will have a cohort.
And do you have an expectation of how many of those will make it?
I mean, ideally as many as possible, but I think you have to be realistic.
That's what I'm getting at. Like, what is realistic for you?
I think 70-80% who make that is great.
Is that realistic though, or is that great? What's realistic?
Realistic's probably 60.
Yeah.
But
the reason I asked that is my old boss used to say, and he's ex-Hydrogen, and he was like, look, we hire 10. Obviously, I want all 10 to make it. But if we get 5 that are fucking awesome, we've done really well. When you look at the industry, and he's like, but you can get really emotional about each person.
Yeah.
And obviously everyone's careers matter and things, but you've also got to lean into the ratios. Like, we have to hire 50 people to get 20, 25 good people at the end of the year. Like, we have to. And it was like, he was so clear on, and I love that idea that you've got to take the emotion out of it. And I know it's people's careers, and I'm not saying we're trying to burn and churn people, but some people will come in with the intention of being great, and they will not like it, and that's okay.
Correct.
And they won't be good enough.
I really feel like we are doing everything we physically can to avoid that, though. So we're telling them how hard it is when they come in.
Yeah, your process on the way in is as hard as possible, so that once they get in, they should stick it.
And that's consistently developing. So again, we're improving that again for next summer. We're going to do more academies. There's going to be more stages. There's going to be more tasks to do. But look, the reality is when you hire 20 grads, 20 aren't going to go on to be 500k billers. No. That would be nice, and we're going to try and aim for that. But the reality is, if you get 60% of them go on to be successful, that's
amazing.
A good
Like,
return.
10 to 12 people. What do you look for in a graduate? What's like the core components? I find the fastest growing companies typically have like really high bar on what they want.
Yeah, and again, this has developed so much over time. So now it's completely value driven. So we want them to be accountable. We want them to be high achieving. More often than not, now we're looking for them to have done something outstanding already in their life, whether that's musical instrument, whether that's sport, whether it's working, whether it's traveling. Like, I want them to have got out their comfort zone and done something or experienced something, and that's been a real. The people who we've hired who've had that have gone on to do really well. So
yeah, like I even look at myself. Was I outstanding at anything? No, but I'd quit a job I'd practiced to go around the world and took a risk, and I had the kind of ownership of my own life that probably a lot of people don't have at that age.
Yeah, and again, it just shows that you've got something about you to go there and go to Australia and give this a go, and like we like that.
Yeah, I think that's really. Do you look for like 2-1 or anything like that as well? Or?
So we didn't, but we're going to. So I think we're gonna have 2-1 as a minimum in the UK.
I won't get into your business.
Really? 2-2. Maybe we could do exceptions, but then a 3.5 GPA in the US.
Yeah. I don't know what that means, but it sounds good.
Similar. Yeah, similar.
I think having bars and having metrics. It's called metric search, right?
Yeah.
Have some metrics on everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, back to the private equity process. It's all about data, and that's something that is changing, and everything is data driven now, and we're really working towards making the most of our data, which again is an interesting point.
So what did it mean for you when you got that deal done?
Yeah, I mean, it was a mix of de-risk and growth capital. So ultimately what it does is it gives us real credibility as a 0.1%.
We're talking multiple millions into the business, right?
Yeah.
So you have been able to take some of that for yourself and for your future to take. Does it take pressure off in some way?
I thought it might take more pressure off than it did, and when you think about it, you talk about de-risking and growth capital, but since we did the deal, I've had to probably be more motivated than ever and more driven than ever, because you've got Andy McRae, who's the chairman, who's got a great track record. He's ex-Fade and ex-Oliver James, very well known in the industry, and then you've got BGF, who are saying, this is a great business. We believe you can take this to be 100 million EV. We believe in you. We believe in the management team. And that gives me a real responsibility of, I need to deliver on this. I can't let these guys down. They're backing us. And I also can't let myself down. So I did think it would take a bit of pressure off. But if anything, it's made. Yeah, I don't know if it's pressure or drive, because I don't wake up feeling stressed or wake up feeling under pressure as much, but I do wake up feeling motivated, and
you've got a responsibility.
I've got to make it work. Yeah, I mean, it's not just a responsibility to me; it's a responsibility to investors and to our management and leadership team, who I'm telling I'm bringing on this journey with us, and they are going to get some equity to hopefully be part of the next event we do. So I have a real responsibility, both internally and externally, to deliver on what I'm saying I'm going to do.
How was it? I don't know much about you, obviously your family, but how was it? What do they think? Like, you know, you're 31 years old, you know, technically a millionaire.
Yeah.
Still working like a lunatic on a journey to way bigger things. Like, what do they think of you?
I think they all think different things, right? So I think my wife gets it and super supportive, so she's good. I think my mum, not still quite sure she believes it. I think my mum's just happy that I'm happy, and when I talk to her about it, I'm not too sure what she thinks. And I think my dad is probably a bit like, oh, but the pressure's off a bit now. Like, come to David Lloyd and play paddle with me. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't just do that in the middle of the day. I've still got board meetings to do, and like I've still got a CEO job.
I mean, you could, but you wouldn't deliver on the job objectives. But you could go and sack it all off and play paddle every day if you wanted. But
yeah, and I think my dad thinks
that's what you should do.
Well, yeah, I think he would like me to do that. Yeah, but again, it's different perspectives, right? And I can say since I've been 21 and started in recruitment, I've enjoyed working in recruitment. So it doesn't actually feel too much like work. It's almost a passion of mine. And I've said I'm probably one of the only people that you'll ever meet who didn't fall into recruitment. I just actively applied for recruitment jobs. So
how did that come about? Did you know someone who was in it?
No, honestly, I just looked in Leeds and there was loads of jobs saying you could make 40, 50K year one, which at the time was loads of money. So I just applied for them all at multiple companies in Leeds. And then when I met everyone, they were like, yeah, you can definitely make 40, 50K and I was like, by doing what? And calling and emailing people and getting people jobs. So I was like, right, I can do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it didn't fall into it. It was a plan.
It was a strategic decision. You sound like someone, for someone so young, you're very thoughtful and you're obviously planning ahead. So that leads into where is the future now? Like you talked about an enterprise value of 100 million is what they want.
Yeah.
That's what they've bought in with you on. So how are we going to go and achieve this? When we're going to do it? What's the plan?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Say we like I'm part of it.
Yeah.
Give me some swag.
Yeah, it's the plan changes, right? And it's been ever evolving. And when what we presented to private equity in the management presentations, that was a 3-year plan to get to 30 million. NFI launch contract, but like we're probably going to do that in 2 years. So we're actually meeting with Houlihan Lokey next month to have a strategy day to talk about what the next 3 years looks like and how we get to that 100 million and to reverse engineer it. But that was probably a 5-year plan that's now a 3-year plan because we've launched contracts, we've launched the new offices, we've hired a lot of experienced billers that were upside to the plan. So we've probably accelerated that 5-year plan to a 3-year plan. So we're going to be meeting with advisors to help plan that out. So it's a bit of a work in progress, but I am confident in 3 years we'll get to 100 million EV. Probably that will look like 150.
What EBITDA do you need to get to 100 million in value?
Probably $10.
You get 10 times.
Yeah, if we continue to work the US market.
So what are they saying to you? What's the PE firm saying is the components of getting a 10 times multiplier? Like there's a few things we need to make sure are evident.
And again, we're still nailing down exactly what these
rough,
are, but the key things are contract, which
needs recurring revenue,
needs some work.
And you're literally 95% perm right now.
Yeah,
which is nuts for the numbers you're doing.
Yeah, I think we've got six runners today. So
wow.
So contracts needs to improve. More retained work. We're about 25% retained at the minute. That could do with going up to 30 plus. More US business or continued US business because that is the market people want to penetrate. Is the UK, Nottingham and London doing more European work then? No, everyone is doing the US market, but again, our market share in the US is
right.
Tiny.
So a bigger
rather
market. Than a bigger share of US in your business, just a bigger share in the US.
Yeah,
right. Different spread of clients, different geographical locations, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so they're 3. Client stickiness is a big one. So how long do our clients work with us for? Have they worked with us through the whole 5 years? Are they just coming to us one and done? Is it spot business? So client stickiness is a
How are you
massive
tracking
one.
that?
So again, this is a new metric for us. So we're looking at who's worked with us year one, and then are they coming back? Like they may have a year where they don't hire, right? So they may have year 2, year 3, they do no hiring and they come back. So it's how much are they working with us over X period of time?
Have you got someone whose job it is to manage data?
Yeah. So we've got Zach and an interim CFO have got the job of mapping all of that out, because there's so much data, and all of this will help us get to that 10 times 10, and the data is key for that. So reverse engineering all of that is important.
So you've got geographical locations across the US, you've got contract, you've got data, like repeat business, client longevity. What else? Is there anything else?
They will be the main ones.
And an EBITDA number, right?
And an EBITDA number and continued growth.
So it can't be like a plateau EBITDA. It's got to keep going.
It's got to keep growing, yeah. It has to continue to grow.
Is there a percentage year on year they expect?
Like minimum 25.
Wow.
But we budgeted that. So again, we set a really aggressive budget for this, and like
so at 100 million valuation, what happens then? Like what would be the ideal event then?
Yeah, I think that the talk is, and the most likely person is US private equity, which is a whole beast into itself, but it'll be US private equity is the most likely exit if we achieve what we're saying we're going to do.
Are you then thinking you'll stay on in that next phase, or would that be you out at that point?
No, and again, we're going to talk about this at the strategy day, but that I think I would continue. Again, if it's 3 years' time, I'll be 34, 35. So there's a lot of work in me, and I guess, and as you said, at your age, you feel older and wiser, and you've still got so much to give. I feel I will still feel like that, and there's part of me that wants to see how far I can take metric. Obviously, to get to 10 times 10 is an awful lot of work, but I feel like we've got all the right processes and people in place to do it. So,
but you would then say, like, let's say even if you've only got 20% of the shares, and you get in, let's say you're taking 10 or 15 million out at that point or something, like, what are you doing in your spare time? So that's where I'm at now with this question. What are you doing in your spare time with this money? Like, how do you reinvest it? How do you spend it? How do you enjoy it? Like, what's your, forget metric for a minute, because I think I can kind of work out you're a bit of a workaholic that will keep going. So what's the point in it all personally? How do you translate that into worthwhile experiences or benefits?
Yeah, and do you know what? That's such a good question, and I'll be honest and say that I am still figuring that out. Since we did the deal, my wife has been pregnant for the whole time, right? So it's not like we've been off on loads of holidays or we've done anything. That my money is just invested, and I honestly think that is something I will have to figure out over time. I don't want to come on here and say, oh, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I will have to just figure that out when the time comes. But ultimately, at the minute, it's still quite new, and I don't actually know.
Would you say you live a lifestyle that needs a certain amount of money or not?
Yeah, but nothing out of the ordinary for recruitment. And obviously, as we discussed earlier, I've built wealth since I was 21. But
so you've always lived a certain lifestyle. What do you spend it on? Is it travel? Is it your house? Is it food? What's your kind of choice?
Yeah, house and investments, really.
Is travel not a big thing? You travel a lot with work, don't you?
I travel a lot with work, and we go on some nice holidays for sure. But again, it's not. It's nothing like over.
See, I'm probably the other way. I'm quite excessive with travel, right? You probably see on my LinkedIn. Yeah. I do like 4 to 6 holidays a year with the family, and then I'm probably doing a couple of trips with work or something. Like we're in Dubai in a couple of weeks with work, and it's like 6 to. I think most years I've been tracking last few years. I probably do about 11 trips a year. Like it's almost like 1 a month. But that's what makes me excited, and I get happy about it. And like I'd much rather that than fucking wearing like expensive clothes and watches. I'm not arsed. Like I drive a bloody mini electric and a Volvo, right? I'm not fussed. But everyone's different.
Yeah, and I think previously for me and Camilla, it definitely would have been holidays, and we would go on loads. But obviously we have Molly, who's 15 months, and we're about to have another.
Mate, I've took my daughter though in a year. She's done. She was born in October. We went to Dubai over New Year. We took her to Morocco, Marrakesh in April. Went to Dubai again in May. She went to Greece. She went to Miami. She went to Peru. When I look at when she was in the womb, she went to about 9 places. So you can do it, but it's fucking hard work. Like I regret some of it. That Peru trip was really difficult.
How long was the flight?
So it was from door to door, from Sheffield to my brother's, where he got me the Airbnb, was 60 hours.
Yeah, that's.
And now we stopped in London. We had a night. We stopped in Miami. We did a night, but it was just fucking relentless. And then we got 2 older ones kicking off. So you're like, I look back at that trip, and I'm glad I did it. But it was, I've actually come back for the first time thinking, I'm not even wanting to go on holiday for a bit. I'm going to Dubai with work, but I'm not planning anything else.
Yeah, and
it's not like me. That.
It's funny. Me and Camilla had a similar experience where we took Molly to Florida, but the flight back, Molly must have been 7 months, but we were stuck on the tarmac for 8 hours.
Oh no!
With her and then it's a 10-hour flight. So I think that traumatized us. It traumatized all of us a bit. So we've got no long distance booked or planned.
Fair. Do you know if you're having a boy or a girl?
Another girl.
Another girl.
So 2 girls.
Amazing. I've obviously got a little girl, and I didn't find out, but I knew. I just knew. I always said surprised. I always knew it'd be a girl. I just didn't really let myself think about having a boy. It's weird. Amazing. So 10 times 10. It's fair to say your personal benefit hasn't really been explored too far.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. I'm not here to advise you anything. Yeah. You're more successful than me, but I would say it is funny how we put so much effort into what we're going to do as a business, and we don't put the same into our own life. So do that. I'd say if you're going to do a whole day on a strategy for your business, do the day for your life strategy. Why not?
I know.
Because we're not here just to work. We're here to fucking live, right?
I know, but I am hoping by the time I'm 40, I'll have all the time in the world to do that. So hopefully it all works out.
Do you think you would get to a point where you'd retire, or you'd do something different?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to know with recruitment. I always say you can't look too far ahead, right? Especially when you're 95% perm and you're back to 0 every month. There is a relentlessness to it.
Yeah. Right. Joe, I want to say thank you so much. Right, we're out of time. We've got one final question. This is written by a previous guest.
Yeah.
Okay, so every time you're going to write one for someone else.
Yeah.
The question I had for you was, what's the biggest myth? It can't be the one about 100K either, because you've said it. So give me another one. What is the biggest myth that you hear in this industry that you think you call bullshit on? 100K, Bill, it can't make 100K earnings in year 1. You've told me, and I agree with that. So give me another one that's a limited belief or a myth that you see and hear and you're like, that's nonsense.
Good question. I have to say the one for me is that you can't bill and manage at the same time.
There you go.
I really hate that. Our top 10 billers, 8 of them are all managers, and I think the fact that when I was CEO and billing 900K a year and managing 50 people, I really haven't got time for I can't bill because I'm managing a team of 3 or 4. I think that is the biggest myth in recruitment.
So, and actually, if you look at the flip side, your business is proof that it's working.
Yeah.
Because there's no one doing what you're doing really at the minute. And I would take it that every one of your leaders are so commercially focused and they're so in tune with the markets.
Yeah.
They're all inspiring their teams. If you say to me, you were the 900K biller up until the point of PE, that's pretty fucking inspiring to work for. Whereas if you've never done a deal, I've never seen you do a deal.
Yeah.
Probably not the same. I need to look to somebody else. Whereas if everyone's doing those things at the top, it's like a high performing football team. They're all there.
Yeah, and that's what we set it out to be, and that's what we wanted it to be. And I'm sure at some point I will be this person, but I don't like the idea of me being the guy who's not done a deal for 10 years and telling everyone what to do, and everyone's looking at me saying, Joe, you're not relevant anymore. So I want all of our leaders to be so commercially relevant, because recruitment changes so quickly, right? Even in the time since, again, I'm not old, but the time since I started, all of the work you do has completely revolutionized what recruitment is.
You just need to buy what I do now. We'll sign a contract at the end. Yeah. This guy has not bought the Hoxo boot. Just seen it.
It's paid promo, though. But I do mean this in the sense of personal branding wasn't a thing when I started.
Was it? It wasn't at all.
And now that is massive. But if you're so far off the tools, I wouldn't know that, because I would be so irrelevant. Yeah. So it's moving with the times, and I think it's important you stay in tune with your customers and with the market and the way recruitment's going. So yeah, that would be my biggest myth, in
Love
recruitment.
it. Joe, if anyone wants to reach out to you after listening and just pick your brains on anything you've talked about, billing, PE, MBOs, there's a lot in here. Are you okay to have a chat with someone if they reach out on LinkedIn?
Yeah, happy to talk to anyone about recruitment at any time.
Yeah, wicked. And we'll get you one in the future, right? It's a guarantee there's going to be a part 2 to this. I want to see the 2 things I want to know from you is, are you on track to the 10 by 10? And did you do the strategy day for yourself? I think you need to do that.
I know I've put myself under a lot of pressure for this, but 100%. I'd love to come back on. Thanks for having me.
Top man. Thank you as always for listening to today's show. I truly hope that you got value from it. Honestly, it's the only reason I take time every week to ensure that my audience, you guys, future and existing recruitment owners, you're learning from each other to make this industry that I love so much stronger. And today's episode is brought to you by my business, Hoxo. I'm the CEO and founder, and we're on a mission to help brand recruitment agencies and their people better. I want to help people have the tools to stand out in the most competitive markets in the world. So I'll see you again next week with another episode. Catch you soon.